Tim, welcome to the club. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you.
You come here today and have a little bit of a look around. What are your first impressions?
Well, I've been here before to watch a couple of games, but it's a good setup, super setup. Obviously, massive for the football club to be back in the city limits, if you like. Especially for the supporters, really, to be able to get here and come and watch us. But terrific setup. First glance is just quickly looking around the main building here on the tunnel side. So looking forward to it.
So tell us about your decision to join the club. What attracted you, and what your plans are?
Well, obviously it was advertised. I saw that Kingy had gone, so I put in. I'm looking to obviously get back into the management side of it. Good level, National League North. So, it was one that was attractive to me. I'm based sort of southwest Birmingham, so Bromsgrove that way. So it's logistically for me it's okay. So in terms of plans, obviously things have changed in terms of last year I believe was more of a full-time model, so daytime training. We're going back to that part-time model this season, so that'll be obviously a Tuesday and a Thursday evening, so that's going to change. So first and foremost we need to try and assemble a squad. That situation suits some and not others. Obviously financially wise the budget is going to come down from last season. It was quite a good budget last year, so that's going to get clipped. So we need to be talking to some of the boys that were obviously part of that excellent season that they had last year, reaching the playoffs, and obviously bring a few new faces in as well. So I think from 3 or 4 days ago up until we report back later in June, then it's going to be a case of recruitment really. So those are the plans to try and get. It will be a small tight-knit squad, that can deal with the rigours of the National North, to get that in place, and then you're looking at what you can bring in and formations that you can deploy around the personnel that you've got.
So recruitment-wise, you touched on it. I know you're not really able to say too much, but give us a bit of an insight into what your approach is to that. Are you relying on scouts or players that you already know, or how's it going to work?
Well, when you're a football player, it's a hell of a lot different to being, on this side of the fence, managerial staff. That they've only got themselves to fend for, so they're looking at the best deal they can possibly get, mostly. Interestingly, going back part-time, an evening training suits some players and not others. So we've had conversations with 3 or 4 very good players who are locally based, who are really up for coming back. Not to give too much away, I don't think, but you've got first of all you've got to get lads that want to train in the evening and can train. That usually means they've got jobs. But in terms of style, there's a lot of garbage spoken about styles of play and this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, you want to play effective football, so you want to get the ball into areas where you can create and get shots off. So at the end of the day, I think something like 75% goals still come from crosses or as a direct result of crosses. So getting into good areas, getting quality deliveries in and around the box, making sure that you're nice and locked out in and behind the ball, sustaining pressure, sustaining territory, being rock solid on your restarts, your set plays, which again, if they're done well, can almost account for a third of your goals. So we've got a little bit of time from when we report back before our first pre-season game. So when I say time, you got those 2 hours, if you like, twice a week, and we'll need to get going straight away. So when I'm having conversations with the players, they need to be fit and ready to actually start playing football day one. So that's what I'm looking at. But the process between now and when they report back is really to try and get round about 13, 14 players, if we can, secured for the club. And then, listen, there's going to be loads of players then still floating about in those weeks that you're playing pre-season friendlies, looking for trials, can't get fixed up, maybe playing a bit of brinkmanship, wanting, X amount of money, they don't get it, and then all of a sudden they're starting to panic around. So, we'll keep some of our powder dry as well.
And what about last season's squad? Will you be having conversations with any of them?
Yeah, it's. I've spoken to a couple. Obviously, I've spoken to young Phillips, a striker. There's a lot of interest in him, as you would imagine. He scored, I think 15, 16 goals, whatever, last year. He's bright, quick, off the shoulder type up front. He's one that I'd love to keep. So I've spoken to his agent as well. We'll see it probably mid of next week where he's at with it. He's got 1 or 2 meetings. But hopefully he won't move sideways, if you like. So we'll see. That's a conversation to be had. I've made a few calls around. There's a lot of lads on holiday at the moment in the 4 corners of the earth. So I'm waiting for some replies back on that. I think the chairman's WhatsApping people. But there's been some indication from a few that they'd like to speak and stay. So obviously we'll be exploring that avenue as well. But clearly that means obviously a very good squad last year to get into the playoffs. So if we can keep the majority of them, then we will.
Finally, then, just to touch on, you've had a fantastic playing career. What were your highlights as a player?
As a player, I would think obviously winning the Prem with Blackburn was fantastic. Won the League Cup with Leicester, and obviously playing for England was a massive thing. But interestingly, when my sort of career finished, I had my hips done. That's what finished me. So I had them replaced, and began watching sort of non-league football. I was doing goalkeeping coaching, but then if I watched a game, it was a non-league game. So for years and years, really, I've concentrated on the levels below the Football League, because I always had that ambition to become a manager, and I'm sort of thinking realistically, where am I going to pitch in? So I always tried to make sure that I studied that from National League down, really. So, especially in the north as well, where I've certainly seen a lot of the teams and players in and around that Birmingham area and north of there. So I'm well acquainted with a lot of the names that will be floating around. I've got lists as long as your arm in terms of recruitment, and obviously Patrick, his sort of clubs have been based in that National South, so he's got a lot of contacts in that area. So between us, hopefully we can get a squad together for the start of the season that can punch its weight. We're under no illusions it's going to be a tough act to follow from last season, but we'll be giving it our level best. So one thing I can guarantee the fans is that we'll be setting out to try and win football matches and to try and entertain. I want them to see goal-mouth action. I want them to see chances, goals if we can. Interestingly, last year the goals for column was sensational, and yet the goals against was the 3rd worst in the division. So it tells you that there must have been a lot of open football matches. So I've got the huddle now, so I can watch all last year's games. So I'll be doing that. So there's a lot for me to be getting on with in the next 4 or 5 weeks before we look to sort of get the lads back and start working on the pitch out there.
Thanks very much, Tim. We'll catch up with you in pre-season.
Look forward to it. Thank you.